You are listening to the voices of the Occultinarium. Now grab your brooms and let's take flight.
Hello and welcome. We are the voices of the Occultinarium, and two nice hosts are
Luigi?
Emily?
and Lynn. Tonight's topic, we wanted to talk about what is commonly known as Ostara or the Spring Equinox. And usually we pre-record our sessions quite a while in advance, but since we just went into this new phase of the year, we thought we should record it and upload it post-haste. So that's what we're trying to do. Yeah. How about you guys? Are you celebrating it or not? Or what does it mean to you?
Who wants to go first?
Luigi
I have
wants to
to
go
be very
first.
honest, I haven't really done anything specific this year. Luigi, you go. I think that'll be more interesting.
I've actually been celebrating the entire
Go ahead.
weekend, funny enough.
Mm-hmm.
There was an open ritual in Camden Town, which happens for every Sabbath of the Wheel of the Year, which was really fun. I really enjoyed it. And then I did my own personal rituals this past couple of days, and still some work ongoing in terms of self-reflection, manifestation, checking in with myself and my deities, and so forth. But I think I personally particularly love this side of the year because now we're getting close to, the bright side of the year, the warmer side of the year. And I'm usually a very slothy, if that's even a word, person. So I need a lot of energy to motivate myself at the best of times. And the sun does that. And in a way, Ostara or the Spring Equinox, as it can be neutrally known as, in a way, that's a good what's the word that I'm looking for? Herald, to the fact that the light is not only just coming back, but is thriving, is growing in power, in warmth, in energy, in inspiration. So yeah, no, it's been a couple of days, quite busy, celebratory at the very least.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. For the few people who don't know what equinoxes are at all, maybe they exist. But basically, we're coming like the equinoxes tend to be two of the largest celebrations in some traditions, and it's the solar celebrations. And with the spring equinox and the autumnal equinox, it's when the day and the night are in equilibrium. And after the vernal equinox, every day will be longer until we reach the highest point at summer solstice, when we have the longest day and the shortest night. And then it reverts back. And in the autumnal equinox, again, we are in an equilibrium and it goes into the darker period. So now for spring equinox, we have now reached the point where day's gonna be longer, sun's gonna get stronger, nature is starting to burst out and come to life and go into this phase of collecting or having collected already slightly energy since Imbolc, and it's ready to bud. And
Absolutely.
what about you, Emily? What have you, or do you have any ways of celebrating or
I've
things
done
that you used to
absolutely
do?
nothing this year.
Yeah.
It's not too late.
That's fair.
I know. I think I have to say, since I think it's amazing, Luigi, that you're still you're finding all these groups. I did not know anything about the group in Camden Town, for example. I mean, I've been living there for so many years and I had no idea that such things were, possible. I think I was more into celebrating things when I was back in Sweden because it was closer to nature in a way. And I kind of lost the proper celebration. But I have been thinking about things that I used to do when I was younger, kind of as a kid as well, but also when I was older that I really enjoyed. I mean, one of the things was I really enjoyed painting eggs, and that's also a very
Nice.
Polish tradition, and they took it very seriously. That it was a whole thing with that. It was not just boiling eggs and painting them. You also there were different ways of painting them, different ways of dyeing the eggs with different you can boil them in what's it called, in onions, for example, to get them a different color, and there were just so many different ways of dyeing them, but also what I remember I used to do a lot was getting the inside of the egg, and just keeping the shell, or you have to like do like 2 holes on each side. And that's something like I used to really enjoy. When I was a kid, I used to get my dad to do it because I couldn't, like, so I have to really like blow it out. And then just like the 'cause it's so delicate, so you need to kind of like be very delicate with it. Yeah, I really love doing that. It was one of my favorite things to do. And I'm a bit annoyed. I think I should just like continue doing that. That's one of the things.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that. I mean, I used to do that too, like painting eggs and stuff, but I don't remember ever blowing the eggs out. I think that was like an adult's job. I've never done that. I was just like painting them. I think it was my grandfather doing. I'm not entirely sure, but it was always perfect. Like I don't remember a single cracked egg. Maybe that happened behind the scenes. But yeah. Yeah, I remember that. It's eggs are like a big thing, and I mean, in the Middle Europe, you have the Easter Bunny, like, and that whole tradition with Easter. But you don't really have that up here in the Scandics, or you didn't anyway. Like it just became a bit popular, like maybe 10, 20 years ago or so, with the Easter Bunny and all that. There was not such a tradition, and I mean, also like this is like Christian tradition rooted in pagan beliefs, as usual.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, I was reminiscing some things that we used to do I used to do as a kid, and I was like, where did it come from? And it's all like pagan stuff, basically. Hence why I grabbed this deck, right? Because it like just made me think of that. But the bunny thing, when I was a kid, every single year, because when you have like egg hunts, I know that UK has like egg hunts. It was something similar, but it wasn't egg hunts. But actually, I don't think, although I'm remembering it now, I actually don't think it was a thing. I think it was something that my parents did for me. It came all back to me. It wasn't like a thing that everybody did. I think a lot of parents probably did it for their kids because, when you're a kid, you're a little bit dumb, so you don't know how things really work. You think like it's real. And I remember we used to go into the forest because I used to be in the forest quite a lot. And basically, the bunnies were spreading candy all over the forest, obviously. So you had to go to the forest to find them. But now thinking of it, I'm very sure that my dad was dropping the candy here and there as we were walking. So I was definitely conned, but that was something I loved. And I really liked the way he was also within nature. Everything, I think, it wasn't just something that was done because it's Easter, let's do this, it was always like in nature, and it was something kind of funny behind it. But yeah, that was just like a
Such
Yeah.
it was-
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
yes, but definitely I was conned.
we all were.
Yeah, I remember some egg hunts as well. Some, like, most of them were private, like just in the garden or something, whereas like my family would hide that. Usually it was like chocolate eggs. They would hide around the garden. But I remember one instance, I must have been really small, and it was some sort of forest somewhere, and it was like a public event where like parents with their children would go, and then you would just search for tiny little, like this small, like maybe a fingernail size of chocolate eggs that you would try and find in the forest. There's a lot of fun. Yeah. But speaking of your tarot deck, we have our tradition of pulling a card before the session and revealing it at the end. And we are using a different deck this time to honor the Slavic traditions.
It's because I was thinking about things,
yeah.
right? But also I'm hoping that one of the cards would be like a spring card and not like a winter card. But we'll see. We'll see at the end.
We will see. Yeah, Luigi, you mentioned like with your celebrations, you did mention deities or gods, but you did not mention which that you particularly hold in honor in this time of the year.
I think.
Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah. I think I always tend to be I'm very dedicated, but never consistent. And what I mean by that is throughout the years, they may interchange because I'm always getting in touch with new forces, new entities, new spirits. But I try my best to always honor, because I guess like it's debated whether or not what I'm trying to say is I'm trying my best to always observe Ostara herself. And I know that historically speaking, the term Ostara, the word Ostara is fairly modern. It's not necessarily very ancient. But to me personally, with all the respect to the craft and to tradition and to the myths, it doesn't really matter whether or not it's old enough, young enough, who knows. But the idea is that even the term Ostara comes from a Germanic deity. I think her original name, though, like I forgot how it's pronounced. I'm gonna butcher this pronunciation. Eustr. If I were to pronounce it with my Italian, what's the term? Like when you do the sounds, yeah, beyond the accent. But so I would pronounce it as Iostre or Eostre. So she is a goddess of dawn.
Yeah, it was similar.
Yeah. So she's a goddess of dawn. And I think it was Jacob Grimm, or maybe the other brother. But one of the brothers Grimm, they do a mention of Ostara, and they borrow from Eostre, and they bring forward the term Ostara as a goddess of renewal, as a goddess of dawn. And because of being associated to the dawn, which is again related to the sun now getting stronger, like we mentioned before, I will then observe maybe other solar deities, but not solar, just sun related, but related to the dawn itself. So I guess in the Roman tradition you will have Aurora as an example. But yeah, I think my personal sacred guardian will always be at the front center of all of my rituals and my observations. But in terms of the Sabbath itself, I've been trying to observe the deity, the goddess Ostara herself. And since we mentioned eggs, I have here tiny little egg. So what's going to happen with this one?
Amazing.
Yeah, so what's going to happen? Similar to what I've done for Imolk. So if we remember, during Imolk, I left a glass of milk out with a burning candle. So a lot of my craft has to do with burning candles and so forth. And this time I'm gonna draw an intention. It's gonna be either an intention or it could be a rune or a message on the egg. Leave it next to the Ostara burning candle throughout the night, and then make an omelette in the morning that I will obviously eat for breakfast. But then the shells,
Oh wow!
the
Yeah, I like that.
eggshell. Yeah. I always feel like I need to. What's the word? I need consume that. Thank you. That's the one. I always need to consume whatever work I do with my deities and my patrons. But the eggshells, those I will bury in the garden.
That's a nice little tradition. I like that. Yeah. What about you, Emily? Do you didn't do anything this year? No. I don't for me, I don't have a big, I don't have a big spring equinox thing either. And I felt a little, just it coming up, I was still like in this whole milk spirit. And then it coming up, it was like, oh yeah, it's spring equinox. Like it didn't strike me. Like my big celebrations are really like Beltane and Samhain are my two big ones.
The best ones.
And then the summer solstice, and then the summer and the winter solstice are my two, like these four are like the biggest ones. And I'm like, yeah, but spring, like the equinoxes, they are quite important, or they feel like they should have more weight than they do in my personal life, like with the equality and equilibrium. But maybe it's because I'm so chaotic. I like the chaos more than the equilibrium. I don't know. When thing is in balance, it feels weird. I don't know. That's not true, but I was just thinking.
Point though, they do come around fairly quickly.
Maybe.
It's so fast, the way that the year spins.
Oh yeah, I mean, and once you get over, like 25 or something, it's just like the years just go by.
I guess as well.
But it's all.
No, I was just going to add before I forgot. I guess as well, not a valid. That's probably not the right word, but a fair deity that may be associated with Ostara. It can also be Persephone, because again, it is the coming of spring, rising from the underworld, and so forth. So any kind of returning deity from whatever journey they had in the underworld can be appropriate, I suppose.
I've seen also Artemis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in a way she would represent in some aspects of the craft and the tradition, she might represent the maiden, and this is still the season of the maiden.
Yeah. So the fun thing is that, like, traditionally or historically in the Scandics, the vernal equinox wasn't like a big celebration either. Like, it might have been marked, but there's nothing really delivered down that it was a big celebration. It wasn't. There's a lot of celebrations in like this month, and the biggest of it being like the Deities thing, which might be basically more like the thing that is like Ostara, or the thing that we want to celebrate. But it's not the actual equinox. It's the third full moon of the year, and it's the full moon that is closest to the equinox, which is the Deities thing. And I can talk a little bit about that later. I just found it interesting that it wasn't really so important, and I personally also don't have this drag or this pull to celebrate it. But I remember, like, in some of the circles that I used to be in, we would it also, I think it changed, like, who we would call on, or which deities we would you know, have or invite to our rituals. It's quite classic to get Idun on board. And the modern pagans or the modern heathens often do that. Everybody always loves Freya and Odin. I think they're like always present anyway.
Yeah.
But Idun, as the goddess who takes care of the apples of eternal youth for the gods, she's also like very much like a maiden imagery, and seen as a imagined as a young woman. So yeah, it's Idun often that people call on, but there's no big tradition, and I don't have like particular deities that I would call on to this. Oh, just whatever fits. Or like you said, like the personal guardians, to have a way to sneak in there and take over. So that's that's a thing, definitely.
I think that's the thing. Yeah.
I think anything that resembles or invokes or inspires the essence of awakening, I feel like a little bit I'm thinking of Sleeping Beauty, which funnily enough in the Disney version is called Aurora, isn't it? So
Yes.
I wonder if there's a secret connection over there. But yeah, like I think Mother Earth, in a way, we can feel her heartbeat right now. Arguably, we can always feel her heartbeat. What I'm trying to say, the thought that I'm trying to get across is this idea that signs are even clearer than they were in Imok. So, like, for instance, in the modern tradition, every single Sabbath has a symbol, and maybe I can find an image that we can then show for visual purposes, but the symbol of Ostara is a circle with two little lines curving on top of the circle. And so you can look at that in so many ways. You can see that as the earth with a sprout. And so in that regard, you can see Imok as the seed planting, Ostara as the sprouting, and Beltane, by the time we reach Beltane, will be the blossoming. But another way to see it, it would be also like the sun itself as an equinox, being sun-centered. And the lines on top, they kind of resemble the astrological sign of Aries, which is the season that Ostara introduces. And again, very sun-related as well, isn't it? So, yeah.
Correspondences, yeah.
We love them.
Yeah, it's fun. We love that. Yeah, when you said, like, that in the Disney version, she's called Aurora. I think she's also in some of the original Folktales. There's this thing of that I think there were 3 children. I don't remember how it went, but there were 3 children. One was sun, one was moon, and one was Aurora. Yeah, but I don't remember exactly how it went, so I would have to read it up again. But there are kids. And I think they got taken away or something, the other ones, but I do not quite remember. But there were more.
There's so much
Aurora was just one of them.
Sacred folklore within fairy tales. It's beautiful.
Yeah, there's a lot to it.
Yeah, there's a thing that they used to do. I don't know if it's just Polish or if it's just like a Slavic thing. So the winter goddess, which is Marzena, basically they wanted to kill her. No, but like get rid of her, because obviously winter was hard. So you do like little dolls from straw that you burn, and then you put them in the river and say goodbye. So
yes,
they're a little bit more morbid like that.
No, but there's a very similar tradition over on this side of the world. With the Celtic tradition, there's a very similar tradition as well. I think the doll making comes at Lunasa during the Wheel of the Year, and then it gets burnt during the winter solstice, either during the winter solstice or Imolc. I'll have to double check. But it's funny how we all cross through different tradition and different places in the world. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of like the hoodoo and dolls and birding. I was like, oh, and then the Wicker Man and and
yeah.
stuff. Yeah. Burning is a big thing.
There's
Yeah,
a
no,
thing that there's two things that I can think of. One thing is they call it like schmingles dingles or something like that, which is like
yeah.
you not pour water on each other, but you like sprinkle water. And I remember as a kid, they used to sell these like plastic eggs, which you could fill with water. So you like press them and they get filled with water, and you just like spray people with water. And that was, I mean, for kids it was fun and stuff, but it's like a kind of a purification kind of thing. I also
Yeah.
personally think maybe it has something to do with like the snow actually thawing and the ground getting water to start sprouting.
Yeah, that would
But
make
that's
sense.
something that I remember as a child, and that was lots of fun. I think we should bring that back as adults as
Yeah.
well. That would be so funny.
Just randomly spraying each other with like small water eggs.
Yeah.
Monday morning in the
Was
office.
that from Poland or Swedish tradition? Or did you do that?
That's
Where
a
did you do that?
definitely Polish
That was-
thing. That's
that was in
definitely
Poland,
like
yeah.
some kind of Slavic pagan hybrid thing.
Yeah, it probably has nothing to do with fertility or anything. Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, even the
Wow.
Easter bunny and all that, because you know the bunnies being like one of these creatures that propagates the fastest and the most, and you know, so it's a really fertile animal. So it's not strange that that was picked as the animal guardian, basically, for this era of spring.
Yeah, it makes me think of the Queen of Pentacles.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not traditional like in the Scandics. There's nothing about bunnies whatsoever. Like traditionally in this Thora month or the March period, it was used to be very dedicated to Thor, and some of the celebrations it's like the first, for example, the first 3 Thursdays in Thor month or March were especially sacred, and they were connected to cranes for some reason. And there's this old poem that I think it's Danish, but it's about how on the first Thursday the cranes come back to the country. So it's like in Denmark or in southern Scandinavia, it's like the cranes are basically the harbingers of spring. So they come back the first Thursday and step foot on land, and then the second Thursday, a week later, they come on to the meadows of the farmer. And then the third Thursday, which is like the pinnacle of these 3 Thursdays, on the third Thursday, it's said that the crane steps onto the bed of the farmer. So we have this, yes, so we have this slight sexual connotation here. There's nothing mentioned about, like shape-shifting, but I'm thinking about like, shape-shifting traditions like the kitsune or things like that. But there's this connotation of that the crane will go into the farmer and they will, propagate in some way or other. And there's traditions also in Norway where people would put on crane masks and go into each other's houses and also do things. Befit spring. Yeah. So, and one very interesting thing is also that the third, I think it was the third Thursday, that would mark the time, and it's also quite close to actual equinox, if you look at the dates, that would mark the time when people would not carry candles to bed anymore, would not bring candles into the bedroom, because now there's so much light outside that you don't use candles anymore. And there was this belief that if you did use candles at night, you might invoke a house fire during the year. So people were very, very observant that after the third Thursday of March, they would not take candles into bed anymore, or into the bedroom. So I found that really kind of
I wonder how many people
intriguing.
stumbled.
yeah, I like that. Yeah. And then you also actually have like something called Crane Day, which turned into the Day of the Spring Lady, or I think it's in the Christian tradition. is the 25th of March. And in Christian tradition or in Christian mythology, that would be basically when Mary would have, been impregnated by the Holy Spirit, because it's 9 months before the official birth of Jesus.
Oh yeah.
And that has to happen somewhere, right? So that is in March, and that is like the day of Our Holy Lady, it's called, and that was also used to be called Crane Day. That's where this whole crane masquerade is or used to happen. But I don't know very much about it, and I've not observed like the Christian things very much, so I don't know what people
I
do
also know
or how
that
much weight they put on it.
there's some people, I guess it depends how much you go for tradition, they bake like little cookies that look like birds. I wonder if that's also cranes.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Like, I don't know. It's just, I haven't really like deeply looked into it, but they bake like cookies or cakes that look like birds. So I wonder, like, why birds? Maybe that was also cranes. That would be so funny if it was actually.
It can also be exactly for the fact that I guess this is the season that birds start to migrate back to the places that they migrated in autumn time. Like, not saying that this is an incredibly warm country, but I would say that if they left whatever they left in autumn, now they're coming back. And I guess also when you think about it, at least in modern witchcraft, I suppose, the season of spring is associated to the element of air. So birds as an elemental embodiment of the season is very fitting in a way. And it's actually funny because there's a less spicy legend or myth than the one that Lynn just shared. One of the legends associated to Ostara, it's probably a fairly modern legend though, but it doesn't matter really. Basically, because it was so cold, there was a bird, sometimes usually a white bird, that was so cold and it was so close to death. And Ostara, the goddess, took pity on the bird and tried to save him, her, them. And by doing so, she turned the bird into a hare or a bunny, I suppose. In that way, it was able to dig, a burrow so that to be warm under the earth. But because it was a bird before, once spring came, they retained, like the hare, the bunny, retained the ability to lay eggs, like a bird does. And so
That's how the
started to
Easter Bunny came to be.
exactly.
Yes, because that's one of the things that you think about. Like, how come we have eggs and then we have bunnies? Like, it just doesn't go. But this explained everything.
Now it makes sense. Thank you, Luigi.
There is an alternative version, which is just as cute. Like, again, not spicy, but really cute. Again, because of the goddess of spring coming to life again, all of the animals of the forest were really excited to see her. And so they prepare gifts. But most of the animals of the forests, the gifts that they prepare, they are mostly like, sapphires and diamonds and rubies, gems, beautiful things. And then the hare goes back home and realizes that they got nothing to offer. They look in the larder and they realize that there's only one egg left for the entirety of the provisions of winter. And they don't have any clue that all of the animals are gathering gemstones. So they're like, okay, this will do. They show up at the ceremony, where the goddess is accepting all these beautiful gifts and all the animals are in line. All of the creatures of the forest are in line. And then the hare gets very confused and they're just like, oh, dear, everybody's got very shiny, beautiful things. And I have an egg. So because of the embarrassment, they decide to go last in line. And so by the time that the hare gets at the front of the line, the goddess have got all sorts of beautiful things, all of the things that somebody can dream of. And the hare comes and says, I only have an egg, but I offer it to you with all of my heart. The goddess then, again, blessed the hare and crowned the hare as what's the word for it? Not ruler, but, as the symbol for the season of spring, because they gave up the last thing they had left, because the goddess knew that apart from the egg, there was nothing else left in the larder of the hare. So they were giving to her everything they had.
Yeah. That
No, yeah, it moved me every time I listen to it or read on it. I'm always like, brave hare.
yeah. I was thinking hare, spring. I mean,
My brain
Yeah,
is going
yeah.
like shiny eggs, shiny eggs, shiny eggs, and it make me
Yeah,
think of
I was.
the goose with the golden egg for some reason, and I'm
Yeah.
like, Amelie, don't, this doesn't belong here.
This is a different one. But I was thinking like maybe because like I was waiting for, the Hare being in line and having so much time that maybe it was trying to paint the eggs to make it more shiny or more colorful. So I was waiting for that little piece. And maybe, I mean, it's probably the way
I mean,
that
that can be a
they tell
version. That
it.
can be a version.
Yeah, right. It's like, oh my gosh, they're also colorful and at least I'm gonna paint it. So he's sitting there and painting the egg and like, here's my egg. Yeah, it's very cute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing I
Mm.
just remembered again is like with the equinoxes, I don't think we've mentioned this, especially like also the spring equinox, because you have this equilibrium of the day and night that is often also seen, or what is celebrated often is like this marriage of earth goddess and sky god, which is very often like a main or a central point of the pagan celebrations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
I think another thing that comes to mind, since we were talking about bunnies and hares, again, it goes back to the fertility aspect, isn't it? Like, in a way,
Mm.
witchcraft, which is very attached to the divine feminine and therefore to the goddess, not necessarily for everyone, by extension, I suppose. Femininity or the divine feminine itself, it is to be fertile. And I guess, like you said before, Lynn, hares and bunnies, that are incredibly sexually active individuals, blessed them.
Mm.
And also, I guess as well, they've always been part of the folklore to an extent. Like, I've never seen it, and I guess because I need a telescope or something, but there is this idea that if you look at the full moon, there is the shape of an hare
Mhm.
on the moon itself.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
hares as well in the
I've
night,
seen it.
observing the moon. Even if they might be observing something completely different, but the idea is that there is such a strong connection between those creatures and our mother moon, our Luna.
Is it a Monty Python film? Because now we're like on moons and on hares. Like I remember there is a scene in some movie, I feel some Monty Python, where somebody is like, look up at the moon. Maybe it's Robin Hood, I don't remember. Like, look up at the moon. And then you have like two rabbits, in front of the moon on some cliff or something, mating like crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know if that rings a bell, but it's something that I've seen very often when I was younger. So it might have been the men in tights or something, but I'm not
Could
entirely
be.
sure. I feel it's in there, like when he and Marianne, there's this whole scene with the shadow behind this
behind the
crossing,
sheep.
and I think it's in the same scene. The
There's like a
sheep, yeah, I
shadow,
think it's in
a
that
shadow
scene.
show.
Yeah, and it's, oh, look how beautiful the moon is, and then you have these two rabbits like making noises while they're going at it.
Yeah, and speaking of
Spring.
the moon, for the 90s aficionados amongst us, if anybody was into Sailor Moon once upon a time, like her teenage
Yeah.
name or her human name being Usagi, again, that translates into bunny or
Yeah,
either hare, I suppose.
Usagi.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
so you got
That's true. I forgot
you got
about
that
that.
reference, like
Yeah.
Sailor Moon, Usagi, the bunny. It never ends.
Yeah,
It
I
never
think
stops.
Tuxedo Mask keeps calling her like Bunny as well in the English version as like a pet name or something. I think there was something so long ago. It's so like buried deep in my memories.
In our
But
psyche.
yeah. 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 But yeah, let me tell you, because now we've like at this point, let me tell you about the Dees thing. So because that might be interesting, or I don't know, but because the Dees thing is the biggest spring celebration traditionally in Scandinavia, and it's best known in Sweden. Because it's so, like I said earlier, it was celebrated traditionally or in the beginning at the third full moon of the year. Yeah, which is the first full moon or the closest full moon to actual spring equinox. And this celebration was much, much bigger than the equinox itself. And we know from historians that in Uppsala, that's where the big celebrations were, and that this very famous thing about the sacrifices at the Uppsala temple were 9 individuals or 9 males of 9 species would be sacrificed. So it gets a bit gritty here, right? But I think this also does it star in the Viking show as well? I'm not entirely sure, but you have like this idea that they sacrificed 9 beings, and historically somebody reported to who was it again? There were like several was it Adam of Bremen, but some person, I think from the 11th, I think it was the 11th century, if not maybe the 16th, very close together, or at the same time, really. But he had some eyewitnesses, and they said there was dogs and horses and men, and then a lot of the other stuff is conjecture, but we would like think like if it's 9 different animals and what was common back then it's probably like all the farm animals like bulls and pigs and goats and hens and animals like that. Also from findings, we have archaeological findings and sacrificial places, boars, also wild boars, because they were also important to Frey, which is a god who is also connected to spring and fertility. So the sacrifice of boars would make sense, as well as in some places also bears, which is not a farm animal, wild, but bears apparently used to be sacrificed at certain places as well. So maybe in Uppsala there were bears, but yeah, it's reported that it was quite grisly. Like there was this whole temple, and then there's the grove, and then they hung the sacrifices there, and the whole decomposition of them was like very sacred. So it was probably a really awful smell, and for the faint-hearted and the faint-hearted Christians traveling by would probably not have been able to take that very well. And it's said that it's called Disting in honor of Vanadis, which is a name for Freya. But it's also a bit speculated. So we think that originally is because of Vanadis or the Deities, which are female goddesses, and that is the connection. Also, like again, like we have all the female aspects for spring. So that might be the connection. And there's a later connection where they make it out to be connected to Disa, a mythological Scandinavian or Swedish queen or heroine who is said, well, it's a story, so we don't know, or we don't think she actually existed. We don't know, but she was in the time when the king of Sweden was the god King Frey, and he wanted to sacrifice the old people for the Uppsala, for the Disting, or for the it wasn't called Disting then, but he wanted to sacrifice old people, and she didn't like this. She was like, no, this is cruel. We should not sacrifice old people. And then she was said to be very smart, so he challenged her and said, well, I invite you to come to me, and then we can talk about it, basically. But you have to come. And now I'm not sure I remember it correctly, but basically he made like all these restrictions, like you cannot travel by foot, you cannot travel by horse, neither can you travel by boat, you cannot be dressed and you cannot be undressed, and you cannot come on the waxing or the waning moon, and it cannot be it cannot be a year, or it cannot be a month or something between. There was, it was like really tricky and weird. And then what she did is like not traveling by foot and not traveling by horse. She took 2 men into a harness on a sled, and I think a goat. There was mention of a goat as well, and put like 1 foot on one side and the other on the other. And then she put on a net, so she was not dressed, and she was also not undressed completely. And then she traveled on the full moon, and right at the 30th day of December, like on the last month. So she was in between 2 years on the last day on a full moon, not dressed, not undressed, not on a horse, not barefoot, traveled to him. And then he was impressed. And I was like, okay, let's talk about it. And then they got married, and she upturned the entire sacrificial history at that point, and old people were not sacrificed anymore. And from then on, it was called, in her honor, Disting. And back then, it was in December, or in December, where people would come to her. She is like a very wise woman, so they would come to her and and hold council. So it was called Disting after that. So this is another story about that. And there's actually another version of the story, or there's Clever Fox. And there's another, not necessarily another version of the story, but this entire part with how she outsmarted him and his, you cannot do this and this and this. Almost the exact same version is in another tale, which is, I think, Norwegian. And there it is a girl, also like a very smart farmer girl, called Kraka og Kroka, which means crow. And this story is connected to the myth of Ragnar Lothbrok, which probably a lot of people know from the Viking show because he's the main character in there. But he's also like a mythical figure. He gave her these premises, like, okay, you have to do this and this and this and this, or you cannot do so and so. And if you can still meet me, then something happens. And then she did the exact same thing and came to him, and then they also got married. So it's the same story, just different names. A bit more famous with Ragnar Lothbrok.
They just
Funny
overlap,
how
don't they?
what kind of things you have to do, right, to get a man.
Yeah, sometimes it's the other way around, right? But
Yeah.
we like, but I mean, it's really interesting. Like I find like the folk tales where you actually have this focus on women being just strong and smart and resourceful, because that's, this whole myth that women are weak or have to be protected is very modern. This is not a very traditional thing. Like traditionally, like there were a lot of stories where women outsmart men or are
Penelope
they're
makes me
equals,
think-
in the
and
Homer.
not. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me
Yeah,
think of
yeah,
what
there's a lot of
Isis
that.
did as well. Yeah, Penelope in Homer, then what Isis did as well when she found out the name of the god as well. So
Oh, of Ra,
Mm.
isn't it? Didn't she
Y-
find out
yeah.
Ra's real name so that she could have control over him?
yeah, so this is
This sounds
why
like Rumpelstiltskin as well. It's like philosophical.
a little bit. Yeah,
Isis
at
came
least she's got
first,
the
I think.
respect.
Yes, well, but some folktales really go back thousands of years, like the roots of them. So it's might be the same root. Who
Yeah, they
knows?
might borrow from each other
I'm
for
a bit
sure.
of I like folktales. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's interesting because I grew up very close to Uppsala and I used to go there very, very often when I was younger. I actually used to work there for a little while as well, but I have
Oh.
not heard that story. This means that my teachers in my school should be really ashamed of themselves.
Yeah, it's a good story. I mean, yeah, it's an older one. Yeah. Do you guys want to add anything to our Spring Equinox Ostara
Yeah, I
episode, or
think we
should we
maybe
go into the
forgot
card?
something
Yeah.
because we were thinking
Yeah.
about runes as well.
Oh yeah, right.
It
Do
would
you
be
guys have any
interesting.
particular runes? Yeah, that you associate with this
I know
time?
that
Or not?
technically, correct me if I'm wrong, but technically all of the runes they already belong to certain times of the year, isn't it? There's a whole calendar. But just from association and personal, not preference, but personal inspiration, I do love. I feel like I bring it up all the time though, but I do love Kenna's for this time of the year still.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely valid.
Yeah. In my tradition, we put Kennas with Imbolc and or in one of my traditions, tradition. But there's this one tradition where if you put all the runes around with the circle of the year, then we have in that way they have like Kennas at Imbolc, and then you actually would have Hagar with the Spring Equinox, which is a very powerful and which is a very powerful rune. It's not like the soft, coming of spring, but Hagar is more like what we would probably associate with. I would associate with the tower. There's really like crash and new start and all that. So it's not necessarily chiving with this feeling of the spring equinox of being like a gentle time. So this can be debated whether it actually fits or not, but you have this whole explosive strength of, that's just under the surface and ready to burst. That's just one of many.
I just wanted to add because I found what you brought up very interesting. I feel like it can be very appropriate because when we reflect on even the word March, the month, there is a etymology that corresponds to Mars in themselves. So as
Right,
March
yeah.
being the month of Mars or dedicated to Mars. And when we think of the deacons, the deacon calendar and the deacon order, the 10 of Cups and the 2 of Wands, which rule the season of the equinox, they're both ruled by Mars as well.
Right, yeah.
So I
And then
think
you mentioned also like with the Aries and everything earlier.
exactly. So I think there might be more to it than we initially.
Yeah. Might have to delve into that. Just put it out there. It's an interesting idea.
It made me think as well of like I don't know if maybe it was a thing. What we used to do as well, like what are they called? The like pussy willow trees, like the branches with the little
Yes.
the bunny again, like the bunny. So yeah, we used to. I just remember that overnight there used to be like one by the window, and that used to be something that they also used like for Palm Sundays. So they used to gather them because apparently it's supposed to like protect like animals or your house from thunder and lightning, which is kind of like random as well. But when you said that, I'm like, but I guess
That might be a direct correlation to it used to be Thor month, which is like the god of thunder and lightning. So maybe, when the Christian beliefs took over and tried to, and then they were kind of like, okay, maybe, I don't know.
let's
I'm
grab
just,
the branches and
but
just get them out of here.
Branches, willow branches against Thor. Let's see who wins. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's one of those first things that that used to bud in spring. Now it's all kind of with global warming and whatnot. Things just sprout here and there everywhere, but it's one of the first things to sprout. So yeah, we used to collect them around this time of year.
Yeah, they're very cute.
All right. Should we get into the card of the day?
Oh yeah, the card of the day. I almost forgot about it.
What
Any
is
guesses? Any
it?
guesses?
The Queen
No
of
idea.
Pentacles.
If it were the tower, because
The
we just talked
tower.
about it, I don't think so.
The Two of
No,
Wands.
it's a pip card. I'm guessing it's a pip card, but I'm not sure.
Anyone else? Anyone? No, it's not a
The-
pip card.
Oh, is he a
It's
major?
not.
It's a major.
It's
Is it a sun?
major. Is it the Emperor, the Empress? Because that would be also quite fitting to our conversation. No, it's not.
No, okay, let's
Show
go.
us.
Let's go.
Yeah,
It's the
show us.
Hierophant. It's the Hierophant.
The Hierophant.
Oh,
Ooh,
wow,
but
it
this
looks
is a very
beautiful.
interesting.
With-
Yeah.
With, I just feel this fits so much better than than the Hierophant in a normal deck would be more of a Christian kind of, but this is obviously like a it's basically like a priest.
Yeah,
that
more like a
has-
shaman priest.
Yeah, it's like
something.
more like a shaman.
Yeah.
So I thought I had my notes. So I see if I can have that. So basically, this man is the connection between the worlds, our world, and the gods' world. But also, I think it was interesting because we were talking about the sacrifices. Is also where they would do sacrifices as well, like animals or something as well. So it's quite interesting that came up. What else did I was thinking of something else, but yeah.
Do you remember in the deck who he's representing? If it's like a Slavic god, or which Slavic god? Do you remember that?
Yes, let me, because I'm like, I don't want to like pronounce, my pronunciation is not like the best. He is called Żerca,
Mhm.
or Ofiarnik, which means sacrifice. And yeah, so it says it basically translates one who offers sacrifices.
Right, yeah.
This is from the tarot. The people that did the tarot card, they actually did like on the majors, they actually made like a really nice book. Yeah, so I don't know if I should continue reading because I don't have my glasses.
Yeah.
But they served an intermediate between humans and the gods, like we said, or the spiritual world, which in their role involved establishing contact with the gods, offering sacrifices, and conducting religious ceremonies. The Żerca possesses extensive knowledge of Slavic rituals, rites, and beliefs. They were responsible for maintaining harmony between humans and the gods, as well as ensuring the property and well-being of community. So basically a shaman.
Yeah, it makes me think of a druid as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too. And I mean, looking at this dude, I definitely rather go to him
Yeah.
than a priest.
Would you like to describe the image just for the people who are listening and not actually watching the show? Would you describe? Alt text.
Me describing something? Oh, that can go really. So it's if you imagine yourself an old man, a shaman, with a really long beard.
That's amazing.
The really
Keep
long
going.
grey beard and a long staff. Basically, if you know how Gandalf looks like, this is what you see. Old grey Gandalf in the middle of the woods. Behind him is the sun. The sun is obviously behind the hill, but you can see that the sun is about to come up. So it makes sense, right? Because the sun is basically getting bigger and bigger now. And I really like he's got all these little tools as well. He's got this tool belt with loads of like shamanic tools that a normal person would not know what it is, but only he knows how to use it. And yeah, it's almost like it's his house because he lives in that tree. But it probably isn't, but it looks like it.
Interesting. It's funny
I
because
like that. That was great. Yeah.
yeah, thank you for describing it. It's funny because the guardian for the lunar cycle that we just left behind for me was also, well, in this deck is called the Elder, but it's basically the Hierophant. So it's interesting that it came up in our session today.
That's amazing. It looks very, I
Yeah.
mean, it's quite similar, isn't it?
Yeah, because they're also standing in front of a tree like yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my in one of my, maybe I can find it, in one of my favorite decks by Stephanie Law, but the first one she made in the Shadowscapes, I find it because it's the second card from the top, so it's right here. It wants to come out and play. The Hierophant is this old tree spirit, so he is also, he's actually a tree. In her mythology with this card, and he's the Hierophant and he's the guardian of all the wisdom of nature, and they're like little creatures, the salamanders and whatnot, coming to him, to his roots, and asking for wisdom and to help. So he is basically like a tree spirit, a dryad, druid, shaman, something. Also trees.
I just had to look behind me because this week I also have a tree, but I don't remember if it's the extra card that is the yew tree or if it's the Hierophant card, which is called Tradition in that deck. I think it's just the yew tree. I'm not 100 because they're very similar. So it's
maybe
difficult to
this
see
is an
from here.
invite to spend more time with the trees these coming days.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, just like last week, I came back from holidays, which not really holidays, vacation, Denmark, where we did an utiseta. So we were sitting, it's basically like a vision quest, sitting outside. And the goal was in the woods, right? So we were sitting outside as long as we can, but from sundown to sun up at the longest. And that was a very interesting experience because it just we all like had our trees, and I was like, we're all spread out. Everybody was sitting for themselves. And at this beech tree, I think it's in English, that I was sitting against. And then I was just watching, the trees around me and how the night comes down and the darkness grows and then the sounds. It was really, really, really interesting. But also here, trees and, I just did a thing with trees.
Tick the box.
Yeah. Yes, tick the box. All right. Well, that was a session about our session for Ostara. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
If you like this episode, remember to comment, like, and subscribe. And see you in the next rabbit hole. Good night.
See you in the
Rabbit
next
hole.
rabbit hole. Rabbit.
Rabbits
again.
Blessed Ostara.
Bye.
Blessed be.
Blessed be.
We are the voices of the Occultinarium. Welcome to the rabbit holes.